Hi there, welcome to Elder Bear Farms. This is Joe. We're out here, it's the day before Thanksgiving, so it's a little chilly obviously. And we're getting some stuff done in the winter time. This is a time where a lot of people don't normally think about gardening and growing things, but this is one of the most important times of the year. And so what we're out here doing today is making soil. And so I've got in front of me, this is some soil amendment that I made all through the summer. These are leaves mixed with a few other pieces of organic material, maybe some twigs, coffee grounds, a couple other nitrogen sources in here. They've been sitting there all summer long. And then we're gonna add these to our garden and let it sit over the winter so that by the time spring comes, the soil is really nice and enriched, not just with nutrients, but also with texture. It's going to have this really nice fluffy texture that we'll be able to grow things in. The roots are going to love it. So we're gonna, for today, we're going to walk you through how we do our compost here at Elder Bear Farms, step by step. But I wanted to start by just kind of showing you the finished product. Of course, it'll break down a little bit more than this, but this is great because it acts as sort of a compost as well as a mulch. So we're going to take a look at one of the vegetable beds. This is an annual bed where I've added some leaves a few weeks ago. And so underneath there's a top layer of fresh leaves that I added, and then underneath that is the composted leaves from last year. And underneath that is, of course, the composted leaves from the year before. And so as we look here, you can see the uncomposted leaves. These are just dry leaves that I just put down that had been raked up from this year's fall. And just below the surface, you can see the much darker, broken down compost from last year's source. There's a few wood chips in there, and that's okay. We just throw them over to the pathway. And as you get down a little bit further, you get down to the actual soil, which, you know, here in the mid-Atlantic, we have lots of clay. And so this is basically what we're trying to amend. We want to turn this clay, this kind of reddish, you know, sad tan looking clay, into something much darker and rich and just full of organic material, not only to feed our plants, but again to allow those roots to really spread, to hold in moisture, and also, you know, when we have big rains like we did this past year, 60 inches so far this year, the soil won't hold on to as much moisture either, and so the roots will have really nice access to oxygen and they won't drown. So here at Elder Bear Farms, we're on a half acre. We're fortunate enough to have a lot of space, and that allows us to kind of have a pretty heavy-duty compost operation. And we're also fortunate enough to have this foundation here that builds right into the greenhouse. And this is just a really nice stacking function for all us permaculturists, because this way is of course south. As you can see, the shape of the greenhouse is meant to capture that south-facing sun. So this south wall, we're able to pile up the compost all along that south wall here. And so all, you know, winter, spring, as that's breaking down, some of the heat that's released will actually go into the thermal mass of the wall there. And then in addition, just having the insulation effect of the leaves piled up against that wall, like having a partially underground, like a Wallapini style greenhouse. And so again, just a really good stacking function where we're using our compost, but we're also using some of those good positive externalities that compost provides in its heat and insulation properties. So here we have the primary source of our compost. Every fall, people rake up their leaves here, put them in bags, set them on the curbs. We're in a really urban area right outside Washington, D.C. So this is like early Christmas for me around this time of year. I get to drive around and pick them up after people have so nicely organized them for me. And the stuff is worth its weight in gold because this is what we grow our food with. And so this is just the beginning. I make several rounds each year, picking up, I think last year I picked up somewhere between 70 and 80 bags to fill the entire compost bin. And this is all we use, just these leaves that have been, you know, they're falling from the trees. So that means those old tree roots that go way down into the soil are bringing up those amazing nutrients and minerals from deep down in the soil that my plants wouldn't normally have access to, and they're just dropping this gift right at our feet. And then we're just going to add it back to the topsoil so that they do get access to it. You can't ask for much better than that. It's free, it's easy, it's relatively clean. It can be a little bit backbreaking at times to carry all these bags around, but besides that, it's about as easy as it gets. So now we've got a layer of leaves down in the compost bin after I finished clearing out everything that we made last year. So we just come in layer by layer and put, a nice thick layer about a foot deep, and then come through with water and just soak everything, because this is going to get covered up with more leaves, and by the time it gets covered up with more leaves, you don't want super dry leaves sitting down there at the bottom, because they won't decompose very fast. And this is considered a slow compost process. So this will go all winter, spring, into the summer. I could probably start taking some of it out in the summer if I want to, but this is not like a hot compost pile where you would have a much higher nitrogen source, like food scraps or a lot of coffee grounds or something. Like I said before, I do put some coffee grounds in here, some other sources of nitrogen from time to time, but just really simple stuff that's going to maintain that slow decomposition process. I get a really nice result. For quicker compost, we do have worm bins on the farm here, which I may make another video about that at some point. You can put something in the comments section if you're interested to learn about the vermiculture, about the worm composting. And we also have another hot compost pile where I put a lot of weeds. I put the plant remains from the annual garden, and then I put a lot of food scraps in there. I turn it really often, so that way, we're killing the weed seeds, we're killing any pathogens, diseases, all that type of stuff. But this is about as easy as it gets. Like I said, it's free. Just go out and find some leaves. You don't need anything as elaborate as this foundation or anything this big by any means. Simple chicken wire strung around in a circle. Anything that will hold this up into a pile. You really need at least like 3 or 4 feet high, 3 or 4 feet wide, like a cubic yard, because you need that pressure to create the decomposition. Anything smaller than that, it's going to break down at a pretty slow rate, just kind of the natural rate of the forest floor. And we do want to speed this up a little bit so that we can use it next year. So we're just, by the end of the fall, we'll have this entire bin filled up, overflowing, and we'll just wet it down layer by layer as we go. This, I don't churn it that often, maybe once a month in the winter, just kind of if I feel like coming out and getting some exercise, or I'm bored or something. But really doesn't need to be churned that often, because like I said, it's not a hot pile. All right, my cameraman Jack is helping finish our compost pile for today. When he's done, he's gonna take us out. He's a good helper.
That was an efficient way of doing it. If you liked the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up down below and subscribe, and leave any questions down below if you have any in the comments section.